Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a nation where the faces you see span almost the entire human spectrum of skin tones, eye colors, and hair textures. You might wonder, how is that even possible for one country? That's our mission today. We're embarking on a deep dive into the incredible physical diversity of the people of Israel, drawing on, well, a fascinating stack of research, historical accounts, and cutting-edge genetic studies. It's a truly compelling story.
It really is. And what's fascinating here is that every face in Israel truly tells a story, a living, breathing testament to journeys from Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, Ethiopia, and beyond. This remarkable diversity isn't just coincidental, it's deeply rooted in thousands of years of history and genetics. Our mission in this deep dive is to understand precisely how centuries of dispersion, followed by a powerful reunion, have, visibly reshaped the appearance of a nation, giving it this unique imprint of exile, migration, and return. It's a core paradox, really. How can there be such immense physical diversity, yet simultaneously such deep shared historical and cultural connections?
Yeah, it's a paradox that often surprises people who haven't experienced it firsthand. We know the modern state of Israel was founded in 1948, but what's truly astonishing is how quickly it became this vibrant ingathering of people from, over 70 nations, each bringing their distinct visual heritage. You touched on the historical context of dispersion and reunion. So how did these major groups form? What makes up this incredible genetic mosaic we see today?
Well, that's the heart of it, really. Today, nearly 75% of Israel's 9.7 million people identify as Jewish. But within that broad group, you find communities with dramatically different physical appearances. We're primarily talking about the major Jewish communities like the Ashkenazi, whose ancestors lived across Central and Eastern Europe for centuries. Then the Sephardi, who trace their lineage back to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, and Portugal, before moving to North Africa and parts of the Middle East. The Mizrahi, which is a broad category for Jews from various Middle Eastern and North African countries, often distinct from Sephardi in their specific histories. And the Beta Israel, or Ethiopian Jews, with a long and frankly unique history in Northeast Africa. And we also have smaller but distinct groups like Yemenite Jews, whose roots are deep in the Arabian Peninsula. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, recent genetic studies, particularly one from 2017, offer crucial insights into how this diversity actually arose. They confirm that all Jewish populations share a common Middle Eastern ancestry. So between 40–50% of their genome, that's their complete genetic blueprint, traces back to the Levant.
That ancient land along the eastern Mediterranean coast, this isn't just, genetic footnote. It's the foundational thread that connects them all, alongside shared religious texts, cultural practices, and the Hebrew language, which continued to bind these communities even across vast distances and centuries.
Okay, so a powerful foundational connection to the original homeland. But then centuries of living in such different parts of the world added completely new genetic layers, right? How did that genetic mixing actually happen?
Precisely. That's where the visible diversity truly blossoms. For example, during their long periods in Europe, Ashkenazi Jews absorbed about 30–40% European genetic input. This phenomenon, known as admixture or genetic mixing, it happened through various forms of interaction with local populations, including intermarriage and sometimes the conversion of local people to Judaism, creating this unique European genetic overlay on their Levantine core. Similarly, Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews carry maybe 20–30% North African and Middle Eastern ancestry beyond their core Levantine roots, reflecting distinct genetic exchanges during their respective diasporic journeys. And the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian Jews, they reflect a significant 40–50% East African ancestry, which blends with those shared Semitic roots, which indicates a deep and ancient history within Ethiopia. This rich genetic mosaic is absolutely key to understanding why Israelis can look so profoundly different from one another, yet still share those deep ancient connections and even some unique health profiles linked to specific group genetics.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, seeing how this deep genetic story plays out visually. Let's talk about the incredible range of skin tones first, because when you consider the sheer spectrum, it's, pretty astonishing.
Oh, absolutely. Skin tones in Israel truly span almost the entire human range, making it a uniquely diverse nation in this regard. You have the Ashkenazi Jews, who often have lighter and olive tones, a direct result of their long residence in European climates. Then you move to Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews, who typically present with medium brown to rich olive skin, a spectrum that reflects their historical origins in North Africa and the broader Middle East. Ethiopian Jews, of course, carry strikingly darker brown complexions, a testament to their East African heritage, and smaller communities like the Yemenite Jews often show deep olive tones with distinct Arabian influences. Survey data actually bear this out quite starkly. Roughly 55% of Israelis fall into light to olive skin tones, about 30% are medium brown, and 15% have darker complexions, primarily among Ethiopian and Yemenite communities. This isn't just a statistic, it's a visible tapestry.
That incredible visual spectrum must create some interesting dynamics within society, right? Does this diversity play out in other ways, maybe in media representation or social perceptions?
It absolutely does, and this raises an important and often sensitive question within Israel. Historically, lighter Ashkenazi looks have dominated in media, advertising, and political representation. This has led to a significant societal discussion. Activists strongly argue that this visual hierarchy has marginalized darker-skinned Israelis, particularly Ethiopian Jews who, despite decades of integration, still face tangible discrimination in areas like housing, employment, and social acceptance. Now, this dominance isn't necessarily malicious in intent. It's more a reflection of who held power and shaped the early visual narrative of the state, often drawing from European-centric ideals. The challenge is that this historical overrepresentation can perpetuate unconscious biases, creating a real societal impact where perceived racial differences, even within a shared ethnic group, can create tangible social and economic barriers.
That's a crucial insight. How appearance can connect to much deeper social structures. And the eyes tell another part of the story, don't they? With a striking variation in color that really drives home the diaspora effect, almost like looking at a map of their ancestral homes.
They absolutely do. Eye color is one of Israel's most striking and immediately noticeable variations. Among Ashkenazi Jews, lighter eyes are remarkably common. Up to 40% have blue, green, or hazel eyes. This is a direct genetic reflection of centuries spent in Europe, where lighter eye and hair colors are more prevalent. In stark contrast, among Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews, dark brown dominates. Over 85% have deep brown eyes. Ethiopian Jews nearly universally have deep brown eyes. And Yemenite and Middle Eastern Jews also show almost exclusively dark hues, often with a profound depth. This mix means you could be in a bustling classroom in Tel Aviv and find a blonde, blue-eyed Ashkenazi child sitting right next to a dark-skinned Ethiopian child with deep brown eyes, both Jewish, both Israeli, and both embodying a different chapter of their people's journey.
From eyes, let's turn our attention to hair, another incredible visual representation of this global journey. I'm curious, how does this incredible diversity extend to hair textures and colors? What does the genetic story tell us about the variety we'd see there?
That's a fascinating connection. The hair textures Israel perfectly reflects the country's global roots, just as powerfully as skin and eye color. For Ashkenazi Jews, you typically see a spectrum from light to dark brown hair. It can be straight to wavy, with occasional blonde or even fiery red hair, again, echoing European genetic inputs. Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews generally have black or dark brown hair, often thick and wavy, sometimes beautifully curly, reflecting a blend of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern influences. Ethiopian Jews are known for their distinctively coiled or tightly curled black hair, a signature trait of their East African heritage. Meanwhile, Yemenite Jews often have thick, dark, and wavy to curly hair, sometimes with a unique sheen that speaks to their Arabian Peninsula origins. Surveys actually suggest that 60% of Israelis have wavy or curly hair, 30% straight, and 10% coiled textures, making Israel undeniably one of the most hair-diverse populations in the region.
Wow, okay, so beyond these more immediate visual traits, the deeper genetic influences are also visible in more subtle aspects like facial structure and even height. Let's delve into those features. What distinctive patterns do we observe there?
Indeed, facial structures in Israel are equally varied, again clearly showing the distinct regional influences woven into the genetic fabric. Ashkenazi Jews, for instance, often present with narrower noses, lighter skin, and higher cheekbones, traits that directly reflect their European admixture and, well, adaptation to colder climates. Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews tend to have broader noses, darker complexions, and rounder faces, characteristic of populations from warmer, more arid Middle Eastern and North African regions. Ethiopian Jews, on the other hand, typically exhibit features like high cheekbones, fuller lips, and broader jaws, which are common among East African populations. And Yemenite Jews often have distinct oval faces, almond-shaped eyes, and olive skin, reflecting their unique lineage within the Arabian Peninsula. Anthropological studies have even quantified this, showing up to a 15% difference in nasal width and 12% in craniofacial angles. That's the measurement of the skull and face between Ashkenazi and Mizrahi populations. It's quite striking how these ancestral footprints are literally etched onto people's faces.
It's remarkable how something as seemingly simple as facial measurements or even height can carry so much historical and environmental information. These variations aren't just aesthetic, they even extend to physical stature, further illustrating these ancestral footprints.
They certainly do. The average Israeli male height is around 177 centimeters, which is about 5'10". Women average 164 centimeters or 5'5" meters. This places them among the tallest populations in the Middle East, likely a reflection of good nutrition and living standards over recent generations. But regional origins still matter significantly here, adding another layer to the diversity. Ashkenazi Jews are, on average, taller, with men often reaching 178, 179 centimeters, a trend seen in many European populations. Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews tend to be around the national average. Ethiopian Jews, reflecting their ancestral regions and perhaps historical nutritional patterns, are slightly shorter on average, typically around 170, 171 centimeters for men. It's also worth noting a fascinating 2020 study. It recorded a 3-centimeter increase in average Israeli height since the 1980s, reflecting overall improved living standards and access to health care across the entire population. It further highlights the dynamic evolution of this diverse nation.
So given all this incredible variety, genetic, physical, historical, what does this all mean for how a nation defines itself visually? This incredible, almost unparalleled diversity must lead to a very real and perhaps challenging debate. What is typical Israeli look? And I guess, does such a thing even exist?
This is truly where the science meets society, and it's one of the most significant and evolving discussions within Israel. The debate often asks, is the typical Israeli the lighter-skinned, European-descended Ashkenazi, who for many decades were prominently featured in early state-building narratives and cultural institutions? Or is it the darker-skinned Mizrahi and Sephardi, who today actually make up almost 50% of Israeli Jews and whose families have been in the Middle East for millennia? Or, just as importantly, should Ethiopian and Yemenite Jews, whose ancient connections to the land are undeniable, be considered just as representative, even if they've often been marginalized in the past? This isn't just an academic question, it's deeply personal and political. Some argue that Israel's global image, consciously or unconsciously, has been skewed by Ashkenazi dominance in politics, media, and academia, creating an incomplete and, in some cases, an inaccurate picture of the nation. Others emphasize that Israel's strength, and indeed its very identity, lie in its diversity, with no single face truly representing the nation. It's an emotional arc, really, because physical appearance is inextricably tied to heritage, pride, and belonging for families tracing roots to Poland, Morocco, Yemen, or Ethiopia. Yet the reality has been that lighter features are often still overrepresented in mainstream media, and darker-skinned Israelis continue to face subtle and overt discrimination. This highlights how deeply ingrained biases can be, even within a group that shares a common heritage.
It's a powerful point about that tension between pride and heritage and the lived experience of discrimination. What gives you hope, though? Or what are you seeing that suggests this conversation is moving in a positive direction?
What gives me immense hope is seeing younger generations actively reshaping this conversation. We're seeing powerful social campaigns, cultural movements, artistic expressions that are pushing back against narrow definitions and actively celebrating all Israeli looks. They are reframing diversity not as a point of contention, but as a unifying strength, a tangible embodiment of the nation's resilience and its ability to absorb and integrate people from every corner of the globe. Imagine walking through Jerusalem's vibrant Mahane Yehuda market. Right now it's a sensory explosion, and visually it's Israel in miniature. You'd see a tall Ashkenazi man with blonde hair and blue eyes expertly selling pastries, a Yemenite woman with olive skin, expressive eyes, and curly black hair calling out to customers with ancient melodies, an Ethiopian family with deep brown skin and distinctive features buying aromatic spices, and a Sephardi man with hazel eyes and wavy hair laughing with friends over a cup of coffee. The variety is astonishing, their histories are distinct, but together in that moment, they are all profoundly Israeli.
That's a beautiful and powerful image, capturing the essence of what we've been exploring. So after this deep dive into the genetic tapestry and its physical expressions, it becomes abundantly clear. There is no single, monolithic Israeli look.
Exactly. The scientific and historical consensus is unequivocal. Israel is truly one of the most physically diverse nations on Earth. It's a place where ancient Middle Eastern roots meet and mingle with centuries of global dispersion, creating a truly unique human landscape.
Yeah.
What makes Israel's people look so different? The answer is a living testament to exile, migration, and return. Centuries of dispersion across Europe, Africa, and Asia reshaped appearances and created distinct physical traits. But the shared thread of ancestry, history, and cultural bonds ties them all back in profound ways to the Levant.
So when you see an Israeli with blonde hair and blue eyes, another with dark skin and tightly coiled hair, and yet another with classic Middle Eastern features, you are not seeing contradictions. Instead, you are seeing Israel's rich, complex history powerfully written in human form. And maybe the real lesson here for all of us is this: diversity is not a weakness to be overcome, but the truest, most vibrant reflection of a people's extraordinary survival and enduring resilience across millennia.